Nightcast. Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth brings you the current news from the world today and how it relates to Bible prophecy. Understanding the end-time events leading to the peaceful world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth.
Good evening, friends. Welcome to this June 15, 2015 edition of Nightcast. In the opening story tonight, friends, thousands of people living close to a volcano in Indonesia have been forced to leave their homes.
Hot ash and gas still spewing more than 2 days after a powerful eruption. These images just a snapshot of the widespread panic of those living near Mount Sinabung slopes. The danger alert now raised to its highest level.
Our worries that Sinabung remains very active till now, and the hot ash is still threatening the neighbouring areas. We had to evacuate a new group of residents from their villages.
At least 3,000 people living near its slopes have had to leave, including 1,200 on Monday alone. Mount Sinabung is one of about 130 volcanoes currently active in Indonesia. Before 2010, the volcano had been dormant for more than 400 years. A military commander in Sumatra has said it's likely thousands more will have to evacuate. Scientists worry the volcano could pose more dangers in the coming weeks. Katerina Mo, BBC News.
And friends, the roof of a 19th century basilica in France, in the French city of Nantes, has been destroyed by a fire that has engulfed the building. Amateur footage shows flames and large plumes of black smoke rising from the scene.
Out of a huge fire, it has broken out on the roof of an historic cathedral in western France. We've got videos for you posted on the internet here. Look how dramatic it is, just showing smoke coming out of the top of the basilica. This is in Nantes. The local fire brigade saying the fire was probably linked to waterproofing work that was taking place on the roof. We are hearing, though, although it looks quite dramatic there, that the fire has been contained. About 60 firefighters attacking the inferno at the basilica. 2 workers who were on the roof when the blaze broke out were not hurt.
Okay, and friends, our next story relates on our chart of things. If we can get over to our chart, let's see if we can do it like this here. Relates to the second seal, which Jesus Christ described in plain language as war and rumors of war. And let's see, this is kind of a heavy story here. Omar al-Bashir has defied an order by a South African court to remain in the country and be flown back to Sudan. The Sudanese president is wanted for war crimes by the International Criminal Court. And for this story, we're going to go to Namsa Masiko, reporting from Johannesburg.
Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir left South Africa for Khartoum and not The Hague to face war crimes charges. He's accused of genocide and crimes against humanity, in which an estimated 300,000 people were killed during a civil war in Darfur. The Sudanese leader left South African airspace amid heavy security from the Waterkloof Air Force Base in Pretoria. As a result, a South African court ordered that he be arrested for being in contempt of court. An interim order was granted yesterday, barring him from leaving the country before a ruling on whether he'd face charges at the ICC was made.
The conduct of the respondents, to the extent that they have failed to take steps to arrest and or detain the President of the Republic of Sudan, Omar Hassan Ahmad al-Bashir, President Bashir, is inconsistent with the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa 1996 and invalid.
A lawyer representing the South African government told the court that circumstances surrounding Mr. Bashir's unceremonious departure would be investigated.
Mr. President, any comments regarding Omar al-Bashir?
Sorry, please.
The African Union has been likened to a brotherhood for ensuring that one of its own is not arrested and handed over to the ICC to face war crimes. It remains to be seen if South Africa will face sanctions for allowing President Omar al-Bashir to leave the country, thus defying the court order. After all the hype, the cameras pause for now. Journalists have taken a breather to reflect on a summit that was overshadowed by one man. 6 years after 2 arrest warrants were issued, it's back to the drawing board for the ICC. For now, Omar al-Bashir remains a free man in Africa. Nomsa Masego, BBC News, Johannesburg.
Syrian Kurdish fighters still in this area of war and rumors of war, friends. From Syria, Kurdish fighters say they have taken control of the Islamic State held town of Tal Abayad, cutting off a major supply route for the jihadist group. The fighting has prompted thousands of civilians to flee to nearby Turkey. Paul Wood reports from the Turkey-Syria border.
Syria's war washes right up against the Turkish border. Or rather, its victims do. These people are fleeing the success of a Western policy, the defeat of the so-called Islamic State in northern Syria. Their town, Tal Abayad, was ruled by the jihadis. Now, Kurdish forces are closing in on it, backed by American bombing. As the battle got closer, they were stuck in no man's land. IS fighters tried to force them back, and for several days the Turkish security forces would not let them cross. It's very hot, he says. They left people to die on the gates. Like most here, almost all Arabs, he's angry about the Kurds. They're doing every bad thing you can imagine, he says. This man says he doesn't much like the Islamic State either. His wife disagrees. At least they weren't trying to force us from our homes, she says. For shame, they shout at foreign journalists. They accuse the West of helping in ethnic cleansing. These people are fleeing from an Islamic State territory that is steadily shrinking, as well as Kobani and perhaps now Tal Abayad. The jihadis have lost as many as 200 villages. The combination of American air power and Kurdish fighters on the ground has simply worn them down. But IS is far from defeated. It's made gains elsewhere in Syria and in Iraq. It remains strong in its heartland. Abu Rahma infiltrated IS as a spy for a rival jihadi group. Many times he watched orders being given to kill innocent people, he says. IS would do anything to stay in power. But their current success is temporary, he tells me. You can't rule by fear forever. It can conquer areas quickly, but it won't keep them. Islamic State has lost this place, Tal Abayad. The Kurds deny they're forcing Arabs out to build a new state. The truth of that will determine whether these, the latest of Syria's 3 million refugees, will be able to return to their homes. Paul Wood, BBC News, on the Syrian border.
And in this next story, friends, a top Islamic militant who ordered a deadly attack on an Algerian gas plant 2 years ago has been killed in a U.S. airstrike in Libya, according to officials. Mokhtar Belmokhtar was killed in the eastern city of Ajdabiya, a statement from Libya's government said. The U.S. said Belmokhtar was targeted and the strike was successful, but that it was assessing the operation's results and would give details as appropriate. Mike Wooldridge will fill in the dots on this one for us.
There was a $5 million bounty on the head of the man nicknamed the Uncatchable, the One-Eyed, and Mr. Marlborough. Seen here with fellow fighters in more recent times, he claimed to have lost an eye when he was hit by shrapnel in Afghanistan, where he joined the Mujahideen in the early 90s and first had contact with Al-Qaeda. Back home in Algeria later on, he developed his reputation as one of the most elusive of jihadi leaders in the region and acquired the name Mr. Marlborough from cigarette smuggling. He gained particular notoriety 2 years ago when the brigade he led attacked this gas plant in Algeria, holding around 800 workers hostage and leading to the deaths of nearly 40 workers, most of them foreigners. He allegedly orchestrated this attack just days after France launched a military intervention in neighbouring Mali to quell the violent political unrest that had erupted there. Mokhtar Belmokhtar has been described as more pragmatic than other leaders of the regional al-Qaeda franchise, AQIM. He fell out with AQIM in 2012, setting up his own armed groups. But then, creating more ambiguity, he pledged allegiance to the al-Qaeda faction once again last year. He has been reported killed before, no doubt adding to the American caution over the outcome of this airstrike in Libya. Mike Aldridge, BBC News.
Okay, friends, in our next story, our last story for the night, we go to a story that relates to what's happening in Greece. And friends, I'm sorry about the noise in the background. The fans on some of our equipment are in extra high, ramped up high gear during the live program because I had to turn off the air conditioner so you don't hear the air conditioner rumbling. And that's causing the fans in some of the units to zoom up and be almost as loud as the air conditioner. But anyway, let's see if we can get through this story. Time is running out to stop Greece from leaving the euro. The French President François Hollande said there was little time to prevent Greece from leaving the eurozone. Mr. Hollande said earlier today the ball was firmly in Greece's court. It's not France's position to impose on Greece further cuts to smaller pensions, but rather to ask that they propose alternatives, he said on a visit to Algiers. We have to get to work. Everything must be done in order that Greece remains in the eurozone, end quote. Talks with Greek and EU officials in Brussels yesterday failed to reach an agreement that would release bailout funds to Greece. Eurozone finance minister will meet on Thursday, but Greece's Yaris Varoufakis said he did not plan to present new proposals at the meeting. The Eurogroup of Eurozone finance ministers is not the right place to present proposals which haven't been discussed and negotiated on a lower level before, he told German newspaper Bild, B-I-L-D. The prospects of a Greek default in just over 2 weeks' time has worried investors. The FTSE 100 in London fell 1.1% to 6,710 points, while the DAX in Frankfurt lost 1.9% and the CAC 40 in Paris shed 1.75%. In the U.S., the Dow Jones closed down 0.6%, or 107 points, to 17,791. Athens benchmark ATG index, which fell 5.9% on Friday, fell a further 4.7% today, on Monday. Greek bank stocks were hit hardest, with National Bank of Greece closing down 5.7%, and Bank of Piraeus was 12.2% lower. A European Commission spokesman said while progress was made at Sunday's talks, significant gaps remained. Europe wants Greece to cut spending cuts worth 2 billion euros, that'd be the equivalent of 1.4 billion pounds, to secure a deal that will unlock bailout funds. Greece must repay more than 1.5 billion euros of loans to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, at the end of June, and promise further economic reforms to receive about 7 billion euros of bailout funds. The funds have been delayed by 3 months amid growing fears the government will soon run out of money. The sticking points between Greece and the IMF and the EU remain reforms to the value-added tax, VAT, pensions, and a primary budget surplus target for this year and next year. However, an opinion poll for Greece's Mega TV found that more than two-thirds of respondents believe the Greek government will have to back down, with just 19.4% thinking the lenders will agree to further concessions. Talks were reported to have broken up after just 45 minutes yesterday. Greek Deputy Prime Minister Yanis Dragasakis said that Athens was still ready to negotiate with its lenders. He said Greek government proposals submitted yesterday on Sunday had fully covered the fiscal deficit as demanded. But today, on Monday, Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras warned Athens would stand its ground until its creditors become realistic. Let's see, we have a picture of him saying that here somewhere. So I thought we did. Okay. The Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras has called on his country's creditors to be more realistic. That's the caption on a photograph that I wasn't able to get. I thought I had it. He said, "We will wait patiently until the institutions become more realistic." Mr. Tsipras wrote in Greek, in the Greek newspaper, adding that political opportunism was driving the creditors to keep pressing Athens to make cuts to pensions. He called on the IMF and the EU to mediate on the idea that we are not only the heirs of a long history of struggle, we are also carrying on our shoulders the dignity of a people and the hope of the people of Europe. And friends, that's it in our main news for tonight. I do have a story. Let me take a look at this. Let me see where we are. You know what? Since we're very early in our report tonight, I'm going to. I meant to go there. There we go. Finally, since we're early in our report tonight, I'm going to show you a light story about an airplane being shown off by a plane maker of the new ways they have to improve flying for passengers.
Like many people, I really don't like long-distance air travel. After all, you're basically stuck in a hot metal tube in a small seat for hour after hour after hour. Frankly, it's painful. So what can the people who make cabin interiors do to make it that little bit more comfortable? Well, to find out, I've come to the Zodiac stand here at Le Bourget, and let's start off here in economy class. Looks pretty normal, as you'd expect, but take the in-flight entertainment system over here. This one is modular, which means that if it breaks down and you can't see the in-flight movie, the stewardess can simply come along, take it out and replace it with another one. Very convenient. And it's interactive, which means that you can link it up with your mobile phone. So you can watch a movie on the one hand and call the stewardess with your phone on the other. Quite useful if you don't like pressing buttons. And that's not all. Let's go and have a look in the galley. Of course, in any aircraft, space is at a premium because you want the maximum space for your passengers, which means things like the kitchen, the galley, have to be compressed into a smaller area, which means you have devices like this. What we have here is a lift, which is designed to take these food carts up and down so that they can be stored out of the way. That means they take up less space, and less space for carts means more space for your legs. And let's not forget the cabin crew, because after all, if they're feeling tired and run down during a long flight, they're not going to be able to deal with irate passengers. So this may be the answer. These are space-saving beds for cabin crew. And frankly, I'm feeling a bit weary, so I'm going to give them a try. Good night.
And friends, with that, we'll say good night. Thanks for joining us for this Monday night. God willing, and the creek don't rise. We'll be back again, friends. Boy, after a good rest, it looks kind of comfortable, frankly. But God willing, and the Creek Don't Rise friends will be back again Tuesday night with the day's current news related to the Bible and prophecy here on Nightcast. Until next time, your host, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth, saying so long and good night, friends.
You have been watching Nightcast with Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth. Nightcast can be seen Sunday through Thursday nights here on cogtv.org. Tonight's program is also available anytime on demand in the cogtv.org video archive.